Hi everyone and welcome to today's Speakers for Schools Industry Spotlight Talk. We're delighted that you have been able to join us today. I am Sarah, your host, and you'll be hearing from one of our industry insiders today. An industry insider is someone who's currently working in the industry, living out the experiences that come with building a career. We have up to an hour for this session, and it will include an interview with our speaker before moving into a time of Q&A. So questions for our speaker can be submitted via the Q&A function, which is just underneath the stream. If you scroll down a little bit, you can find that. It will be open from now to get your questions ready to ask at the end of the interview. You can also interact with today's talk via the poll or the quiz that we have on the same page. So get stuck in. We love seeing your answers there. And we'll be posting a feedback link there as well, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any issues at all during this time, please let us know via the same box where you put your questions, and we'll be able to help you and try our best to support you out there. So today we're excited to welcome Suzy Klein, Head of Arts and Classical Music TV at the BBC. So hello, Suzy. Welcome. Hello, it's good to have you.
Hello. Great to be talking to you, and hello everybody who's watching. Great to have you here.
Great to have you. So yes, let's get stuck in. We're really excited to hear all about your journey so far and what you've been up to in your career. So the first question I have for you is, can you tell us about your journey? Can you tell us how it's been so far? What has shaped you into the role you are in now? And are there any pivotal moments that have happened that you can tell us about?
Okay, so it's a big question. So I would say the first thing about the journey is it was totally unplanned, in the sense that I did not have a kind of goal. And certainly when I was 16, when I was 18, even by the time I was 21 and I'd left uni, I had no idea what I was going to do. So my first thing would be, don't freak out if you don't know what you're going to do, because you don't need to always have a big plan. When I was at university and I was studying music, I didn't know what I was going to do. My final exams were coming up. I was going out with a guy who applied to do a random course, to do a post-grad master's in broadcast journalism at City University in London. And I thought, okay, I don't know what that is, but I'll have a go and I'll apply. As it turned out, I got onto the course, he didn't, then we broke up. I had an amazing time there because it was a really vocational course. I think part of it's amazing to go to uni, and I had a fantastic time there. I probably didn't work as hard as I should have done, but the great thing about doing a vocational course is it really starts giving you some big questions about, like, you get your hands dirty with whatever it is that you want to do, and you start thinking, okay, is this right for me? Am I better at this? Am I better at that? While I was doing that course, we all had to apply for a journalism award, which I won, and it meant that I got flown to Canada, and I was actually really gutted because it was my 21st birthday party. I had to cancel the party. I'm still really annoyed about that. But I flew to Canada and I worked for CBC, which is their equivalent of the BBC there. So I did some news reporting, I did some radio stuff, I flew all over Canada. And I suddenly thought, yeah, I've sort of got the bug for this. I think I really like it. So I would say that it dawned on me quite slowly what I wanted to do. Then I got back to London and I was like, right, surely I can just get a job. It did not work like that. I had 6 months of writing letters, doing every job application under the sun, looking at every listing. And most of the time I never even got a response. So again, totally normal. Do not take it as a knockback if at the beginning you're like, I am not making any inroads here. I had no nepotism. Like, my family didn't know anybody in the industry. My dad worked on a market stall and like sold men's shirts, and my mum had her own little business. We were not well connected. I didn't know anybody who did anything that I wanted to do. So I didn't have like a way in except persistence. And this, I would say, that is like the first lesson that I learned. I would listen to radio shows that I really liked. Then I would find out the producer of them and I would call them every Friday. I mean, like, I must have been the most annoying person, just going, hi, I really love your show. I'll come in on Monday and like just help out and make tea. And I did this for 6 months. And eventually I did get some unpaid work experience just for a few days at BBC Radio 4. and I started working on a show called Start the Week, which was a show of like a sort of books, ideas, discussion show. And I think I was there from Monday till Wednesday, and then they called me back and started giving me occasional little freelance days where they would pay me a tiny amount. And it was tough. It was like I needed to earn money, so I did lots of other little jobs in between. But I very slowly, just over that first year, just got as much experience, contacted as many people as I could. So that I think was the big turning point for me, was like, right, I mean, I still have the folder of rejection letters because I think it's good to remember. So yeah, keep going basically. But then I worked in BBC Radio for a while. I then got a job in television, and I've done every job, like runner, making tea, photocopying, uh, through to director, producer, executive producer. I was a presenter, a host for 15 years on radio and TV. And now I do a kind of senior leadership job. So I would say it, looking back, the like 16 or 18-year-old me would think, how the hell did you do it? And I think the answer is persistence and just slowly keep going. Know what you want to do, find it out slowly, and then just keep going.
That's an amazing journey, and to know that you have so many kind of like experiences in different roles as well, like in that kind of field or in that space, is quite nice. I feel like that's definitely probably helped to your kind of overall experience and overall perception of what it is to work in broadcasting and TV. I wanted to kind of ask a little side question as well as you were speaking. Those 6 months are kind of just like pushing and perseverance. Like, do you have any tips and tricks to kind of give to our young audience about, I guess, maybe how you got through that, what you did to kind of keep yourself going? Yeah, was there anything that kind of you went back to keep yourself motivated in those rejection periods?
I suppose the one thing I would say is the times where you feel worst about yourself are the times where you have to sell yourself the most, and it's a killer. It's like you've got no confidence. Everybody's saying no. Every door is being shut in your face. And every time you meet someone, you've got to be like, hi. And it's the last thing you feel like doing. So don't feel alone in that. Everybody has to do it. I think uh, when I was looking for the job in the dark ages of the pre-internet, it was both harder and easier. It was harder to find out who was doing stuff because there was nowhere to go and look it up. So you had to really, really research. But then it was also easier because there was less distraction, and I was not spending my days when I was unemployed looking at TikTok and Instagram and whatever, and playing games on my phone. So I would say that you've got to have a North Star that you are aiming for every single stage of your career. I was like, right, that is where I'm aiming for. That is what I'm going to do, and work backwards from that. If I want to end up becoming a runner or a researcher or whatever, here's the point, the end point. What are the things that I need to do to get there? And I would be really strategic about it. I would just try and I'd write down loads of bits of scrap paper of like, right, I've tried this person. Who else could I think about? Like, what's the sort of different angle into that if this door's been shut in my face? So I do think it's that combination of like, knowledge is power. No, find out the people who are in your industry who can help you get in, and just keep plugging away. At the point where you feel your lowest is the point where somebody will open a door for you. So just keep plugging away.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. I'm even taking it for myself as well.
It's all right. Not taking it for myself.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so another question. So, do you need any specific qualifications to be in broadcasting or to work in TV?
It really depends what you want to do, because it is a huge it's a huge industry. You know, you could end up wanting to be a chippy, a carpenter, where you make sets at Pinewood or on film sets or TV studios. You might want to be a lighting person. You could want to do, you know, we need electricians to come and do all of those jobs. There's makeup, where You will, for all of those things, you will need particular qualifications, and you will find that there are amazing courses out there. Like, for instance, I know there's an academy at Pinewood that only teaches TV and makeup, TV and film, hair and makeup. So those are things where you do need specific qualifications. What you don't need qualifications for is the stuff that you probably will think of as broadcasting. So presenting, hosting, very, very few opportunities to do it, but I can talk about where those are. But you don't need a qualification, you just need to be good at it. If you end up working for an independent production company who make dramas or documentaries or comedy, you don't need qualifications, you just need to know the product. You need to watch and listen to as much stuff as possible, and you need to persevere.
Definitely. I think also it does help, doesn't it, to have your own kind of individuality and what you can bring towards that role. But that plus knowledge obviously will be a good combination. And so, what does working in broadcast look like? So I know you mentioned as well that we might have a kind of like idea of what broadcasting looks like and what roles are in that. But what does working in it actually look like? What are the different roles out there?
So in TV production and factual TV, which is what I do. So I worked for a little bit in drama, but it wasn't my thing. It takes a very, very, very long time to make a drama, and I need a sort of quicker hit of job satisfaction than that. So also I worked in a newsroom for a while. I really didn't like news. The pressure of it, it's like you are constantly having to feed the machine of news. So finding out what it is that you really like is going to be important. But in terms of factual TV, so that would be like everything from factual, like reality shows, documentaries, yeah, comedy, food, science, nature documentaries, all of that side of things. It's a pretty similar kind of ecosystem. So the BBC and none of the broadcasters make things themselves. There is nobody at the BBC who is a TV producer. What you will find is there are a lot of independent production companies out there. And if you look at the end of any set of credits, you'll see who they are. You'll also see who the executive producers are. They're the people you need to get in touch with. But on those shows, it's everything from a runner who, as I said, you will be helping to print things, book transport, sort out stuff for your presenter. It's a kind of administrative support role, and it really gives you exposure to what the industry looks like. From there, there's potentially a researcher role, which is where on a show you will be going and doing the research. That could be calling contributors. It might be helping to cast people on a reality show. It might be just, if it's a factual, say, a history documentary, it'll be going away, talking to the experts, doing a load of reading, making notes for your producer director. Producer is the person who comes up with the ideas, the themes, actually brings the show practically together. The director will be the person who is then visualizing it, deciding how they want to shoot it, setting up all the locations, possibly with a location coordinator. That's a really nice job, particularly on international shoots where you basically go around and somebody says, I need something that looks like a 13th century German castle, or I need something that, and that's your job. So I would say, again, read around the industry, have a look at the credits on TV shows, and just think, what does that person do? What does the hair or the makeup or the lighting or the locations person actually do? Because for any one of your skills, if you're a brilliant writer, you will end up going down the researcher producer route. If you have dyslexia, or you are neurodivergent, or you just hate doing written presentations, you might love being a director because it's all about visual language and how you shoot and realize things. There are loads of, I mean, that's one of the things I love about working in TV, is it is not just one kind of person. It's not a desk-bound job if you don't like desks. You're out and about and you're interacting with the world and making stuff in it, which is great. And also it welcomes in a whole load of differently wired people, because you need to have all of them on your team for it to be a good show.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. So many roles, even ones that I'm learning about. So thank you so much. And again, that just shows that there's so much more to get involved with, and even like the little tips and tricks of kind of like looking for the credits and things like that. I think, yeah, you're definitely going to give some practical tips today to some people. So, what are some pathways to get into a company like BBC? Are there kind of specific things you need to fill out or applications, or is it just kind of like who you know? Yeah, what are some pathways to get into BBC?
So, like I said, there are independent production companies, and if you want to actually make content, those are the places to go. The BBC, though, is a big organisation, has around 10,000 or so people in it, and that sounds like a hell of a lot. They are everything from running channels, curating iPlayer, making the digital products like the BBC Weather app or the news app, or working in news. So, one thing I didn't say is that everything that we do make for news is made in house, and the news division is huge. And that is broadcast journalists, cameramen, researchers, news producers. So, all of those internal jobs are basically advertised everywhere. I would just do a Google search of BBC jobs and look for the next few months at the kinds of jobs there are. I think you will be amazed. There are bits of the organization I have no idea what they do. There are some people whose jobs it is just to maintain the property portfolio. And so if you're interested in property, there's the people who actually make sure that the satellite dishes are working and that our stuff is actually going out there, or there's the BBC Africa service or Arabic service, or there's language services for the whole of the world. So I would have a look at all of the job listings just for a couple of months to get a sense of what the range is of the jobs out there. And you'll see pretty quickly that specific areas might have particular needs, like obviously language service needs, but it'll give you quite a good idea of the range of roles that are out there.
That's great, thank you. And I guess maybe adding on to that, so I can break this into two. How would you approach building and maintaining professional and personal development as you're kind of building your career? How can you maintain, professional and personal development? And the second half of that question would be, what advice would you give to young people who are looking to get into this industry? Following on from that.
Okay. Um, Personal and professional development, I always find quite difficult because, in a way, it's a seamless part of getting better at whatever you do. Um, I think you have to be really brutally honest with yourself. And there's an exercise that I do every 2 or 3 months that I actually diarize, where I spend an hour looking back at what I've done and working out what I've been really crap at. Whether it's like, oh, I actually haven't given enough support to the people in my team to really feel like they can express their views, or I suddenly realize that the quietest person in the room actually has loads to contribute, or I haven't thought enough about the environmental impact of what we're doing and how we can mitigate and minimize that. And actually, I think constant personal review, where you are just your most brutal critic, and then you've got to put that to one side because otherwise you just walk around going, I'm terrible at everything. But I think that sense of constant review for me is like, that's part of being good at whatever you end up doing, is just being able to face and ask yourself some really probing questions of like, where did I not give the best account of myself? What are the bits that are missing? When I started doing my current job, which is running all of the arts and classical music commissioning, so that's every program to do with arts and culture on TV, is something that I will commission with my team. I had no experience of senior leadership. I had no experience of working in an office. I've been freelance my whole life. I've been doing a million different jobs inside and outside the BBC. So I was like, I need some professional development in like finances. I have a budget of X millions every year. I didn't know how to run that. So there are points where you'll get a new role and you'll think, I really have a big bit of this jigsaw missing. And literally all you do, you find the person who is going to help get you access to that training. But I think in terms of personal development, I think it's sort of got to be an ongoing, constant evolution. And it's only really when you look back, and I look back at, say, the last 3 years of doing this current role, I think, yeah, I've actually learned a lot, but it's small, like little increments at a time. And the follow up was,
Yes, the follow up was what advice would you offer to young people looking to establish themselves in broadcasting or in TV?
um, I think be really clear about your own goals. I remember finding it quite hard to think. People would ask me, "What are you going to do? What are you going to be? What are you gonna, like? What career are you going to have?" And I didn't know. But I think if you can, clarity is always going to help you. It's going to be your friend. Write down the things that, like, what is your USP? And you might sit there and go, "Oh my God, I don't have one. I'm like everybody else. I don't have anything special." You do. You have things. So a friend of mine once said to me, only do the things that only you can do. So we've all got to get a job. We all need to earn money. Try and, when you start, find the thing that you know you are really good at. It might be a tiny thing. I know I'm really, really great at improvising on the spot, or I know I'm really great at thinking on my feet, or I know I'm like really quick and really funny, or I know I'm great at writing essays, whatever it is. Really be specific. What are the things that you can do brilliantly? Because everybody has things that they can do better than other people. That's where I would say your North Star is, because that's what really only you can offer. And you might find it hard to get the answer to that. It takes time. A friend of mine who is in his 50s, who is incredibly successful, he has sold millions and millions of books. It took him 20 years to realize that the thing he was brilliant at was making connections between things that other people didn't realize. And the books that he has sold are all about weird connections between things. But it's a random thing to be good at. But it took him years of like refining and refining what it was that was special about him. So find that thing and then start thinking, how do I apply that to the workplace? Who might want somebody like that? That would be my advice.
Yeah, that's great advice, and especially as well with the time limit. There's no time constraint, is there? You can find out these things whenever whenever it
Yeah.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
Which is really nice to hear. And so, in your experience, how important is mentorship and community support for career building?
Um, Actually, massively. And I would say in my industry, there isn't nearly enough of it. I think still you have to find and identify your own mentors. And I, there may well be other industries that I know nothing about where the mentoring is much more formalized. But I would say, as somebody who knew nobody in the world that I was going into, it's hard to gauge how you're doing when you don't have that kind of mentorship and the support around you. Like, my family were incredibly proud that I was working for the BBC. My grandparents were immigrants. It was like the BBC to them was like this holy grail thing. So the support of that, of it being really meaningful and significant to them, meant a huge amount to me. I think what I didn't have when I was starting out was that sense that there were people who would help lead me through the industry and support my decision making. And the other thing I think that has changed massively, it's like, I'm nearly 50. When I started working at 21, I think the thing that has really shifted for me is like women in the workplace. When I started working, there were still a lot of women who had started working in the 80s, were quite tough, and were particularly tough to other younger women because it had been really hard for them to get into the workplace. They still didn't have equal pay. And let's be honest, there's still a lot of pay inequality out there. But the thing that has changed is I try and model the fact that I not only have a job, but I have a husband and I have two kids and I have loads of friends and I have a life. And I think one of the things that's changed in working culture was when I started work, you were just expected to work ridiculous, ridiculous hours. I would routinely work 60, 70-hour weeks with no weekends. And I remember one year where I took 2 days off for 52 weeks. That was it. And that was really unhealthy as a working culture. But So I would say, in terms of mentoring and sort of generosity of people sharing, that's got much, much better in the workplace. It might not be formalized yet, but if you go to people and you ask for help and advice, they're much more willing to do it. When I started working, there was this kind of bravado of like, you just get on with it. And yeah, you're in the middle of nowhere filming on your own and you've got a camera and it's dark and you're vulnerable and people might nick it off you. Get on with it. That really wouldn't happen today. So I would always urge people to ask for advice from everybody. Most people are incredibly generous about wanting to support. So don't expect mentors to come to you. But again, it's sort of on you to find them and use them.
Definitely agree, 100%. Thank you. And also, I know you mentioned before about some kind of ways to get into presenting or hosting. Can you share any resources or programs that have been particularly beneficial to you during your career, or maybe that can help our young people make that first step and start learning?
Yeah, I mean, my step into it was kind of haphazard, but also incredibly fortunate. And it's not something that most people are going to have access to. I was running a talent search because we wanted new presenters for the BBC Proms, and somebody didn't show up. And I'd been working in TV for quite a long time, like several years by that point. I had never wanted to be a host, and somebody didn't show up, and I sat down and I thought, oh, I'll just have a go at this for a laugh. And I read the auto cue and I thought, wow, that is like the easiest job in the world. Why doesn't everybody want to do this? So I carried on. I was at that point series producing the proms, but I started doing a bit of presenting. Now, nobody else is going to have an opportunity like that to get into presenting, but there are a few things that I would say. People kind of glorify presenting like it is some amazing thing. It's basically speaking English, which is what we do all day, every day. It's like, it's what I'm doing now. I'm just talking and I haven't planned what I'm going to say. So it's not very difficult, although presenters would like you to think that it's difficult, but it really isn't. The next thing is, find out what it is that you want to host. So if it's a radio show, if there's like a particular kind of music that you love, there is a younger musician who's a brilliant, like, pianist, singer. She's amazing. She's in bands. She's somebody who I've just helped get a presenting gig on a new radio station. And what I encouraged her to do was record yourself, watch yourself back, listen to yourself. When I was starting out in presenting, I used to do a ridiculous thing where I would learn a script, say 30 seconds of something. I would film myself on my phone doing it. And I'd be like, right, do it like you're the News at 10 presenter. Do it like you're a kids' TV presenter. Do it like you are Nigella Lawson doing some ridiculous whatever. And I made myself practice a million different ways of what it means to be a presenter till I found the space where I was like, right, that fits with who I am. Because I did not feel like a kind of authority figure. I felt like a complete, fraud. Who am I to sit there on the TV and tell people stuff when I'm whatever? You kind of got to get over yourself. And the way of getting over yourself is practice. Film yourself, record yourself, listen to the people on the radio you love, watch the people on TV, start actually saying, oh, she always does this, or I noticed that like Fiona Bruce very often does this, or Nigella Lawson very often leans forward, or whatever it is. Everybody has their shtick. So I think the thing with presenting is start small, find a local radio station. There's BBC local radio stations up and down the country. Find the shows that you like, listen to what they do a bit of, you don't need to spend any money ever. Like, do not fall for people trying to get you a professional show reel. Absolute waste of time. I watch those things all the time. I couldn't care less if they're professionally filmed. You can see immediately if somebody has talent. So do not waste your money on any of that. What you should spend your time and your thought and energy on is getting yourself in front of the right people and in the right places. So there's no point in saying, I want to be the host of, I don't know, the news, if what you haven't done is called up every local news station, online, small things, and just get yourself in to the first rung of the ladder.
No, that's really, really good advice. And I'm sure a lot of people are making notes, scribbling down. But I think practice is definitely something that people tend to kind of glaze over because, as you said, presenting is speaking. It's what we normally do. So I think people are looking for like the practical ways of jumping into things, but practice is a massive thing. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And in your opinion, how can educational institutions better prepare students for the working world?
So I think genuinely that we have a real gap in terms of the way that we educate students. I still think a lot of schooling is really Victorian, which is you sit still, you sit quietly, and you absorb from the great teacher at the front. And I've had some really good teachers and some not so good ones. I think what school and university still does not give you is the tools to present yourself with clarity and confidence, which is an essential part of being successful in any workplace, which is why I would urge people to practice whether they want to be a TV presenter or not. One thing that we get really embarrassed about in this country is like spending time making ourselves really impressive and professional. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to look smart, but you need to look smart when you're turning up for an interview, when you're turning up to meet anybody. You need to have a think about what it is that you're trying to project, and it is competence, confidence. It's not being a show off or arrogant, but it's about quietly knowing that you're good at what you do. So you turn up looking absolutely pucker and like really, together. Schools don't teach you this stuff. And actually, a lot of what you will do at work, whether you're working, like regardless of what you're doing, is whether you're a plumber, an electrician, whether you're working in the city, you will have to present yourself in front of clients and in front of people who you will want to persuade need to buy your product, whatever that is. And that means you need to be able to talk with confidence about what you do. So I would say I wish schools and unis gave people much more. They do this in America, which is why every time you see an American on TV, they just speak in like these perfect sentences because they do loads more practice. It's embarrassing. You will totally get an ick about doing it for yourself, but do it. Talk into the mirror, talk into your phone, look back at how you look, and just get better at it. Nobody is born knowing how to do this stuff. But I think if schools could teach people how to present with confidence and clarity, it would be massively beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Even in networking spaces, even just basic communication, just being able to talk and kind of like present yourself well is definitely a life skill. But thank you so much for those answers. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. We've had loads of questions come in already from our audience. Everyone is
Okay,
like
good.
raring to go. So one here is, how do you balance creative vision with the practical aspects of managing a TV department?
Oh, that is the best question because that's like, it's the real challenge. How do you turn up for work on a Monday knowing that you've got back-to-back meetings for the rest of the week and you're dealing with practical stuff that's going wrong, and you're while also trying to be a creative leader who is trying to reimagine and make better the thing that you do? It's really hard. Some of it is just being conscious of that tension, because you will find in the workplace that there is this sort of there's like a matrix of what is urgent in my diary and what is important. And the things that you will always end up doing are the things that are urgent. It's sort of, I mean, it's the same whether you're at school or at uni. It's like, oh my God, what's urgent? That piece of work. What's really important? Actually, that bit of thinking or reading or personal development. And it's always the thing that gets put to the bottom of your list. So finding time to ensure that you're being creative. I'm still really rubbish at it. I've had to diarise a meeting later with a member of my team to say, let's spend 2 hours talking about just ideas, not everything that we need to deliver and all the things that. So it, for me, that is a constant struggle. I think everybody finds it quite difficult, but you need to try and keep balancing in your life what's urgent and what's important. Very often the urgent stuff isn't that important, just needs to be dealt with. So leave time for the important stuff.
Definitely, the balance is important there. Thank you for that one. And how do you stay current with trends and changes in the broadcasting industry, especially in the arts and the classical music sector?
Yeah, it's a good question because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, when I first started my job, I was out at a gallery opening or a theatre or movies or screenings every night of the week. And I nearly killed myself because you can never see even 10% of even what's on in London, let alone what's on across the UK. So I stopped trying to do that. And now I do go and see things, but I also accept that I can't possibly know everything. And that's fine. Um, I I read 3 newspapers a day. I am on Instagram. I don't bother with TikTok because I know it would take over my life and I just can't go there. But I also live with a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old. And so, what I would say about anything about wanting to be plugged into stuff is the more kind of neural pathways you have, the more access you have to different perspectives. So I have quite a diverse team. I have somebody with a long-term disability on it. I have one neurodiverse person. I have I work with 3 uh, people of different sexualities, people from across the. It's really important that you do not surround yourself with people who are like you. And I think whatever industry you're in, keeping a breadth of perspectives, but also knowing that you're never going to know everything is fine. But that it's important. Like my job is to know what's going on. And very often I'm mortified and embarrassed when I'm like, that thing happened and I didn't know about it, or I've never heard of that person. It's just the way it is. But I do really try and keep as up to date with stuff as I can.
And it's nice to know that you do that with people. I think it's quite easy to kind of use TikTok or Instagram. I am definitely a victim of
We
TikTok.
all do it. We
But
all do it.
FYP is like cat videos and falling babies and things like that.
Yeah.
But using actually people around you is a really, really good tool.
Yeah,
Like having
people
a
know stuff.
diversity.
Like,
Yeah.
use it. It's great
Yeah.
information. So just get as many different
That's
perspectives as
great. Yeah.
possible.
And so, what is a day in the life like for you? Do you have an assistant? This person is asking.
I do. I actually have 2 assistants, which feels ridiculous because like that feels like quite a grown-up thing to say. But I have um and so I have 2 assistants. One of them looks just after my diary, which is a mad diary. And like I said, I was doing far too many things. And I do try and carve out some time for myself, but very often I would say a normal day for me is start work at 8, finish at about 6 or 7, come back, see my husband, see the kids, then do another hour or so of emails and make sure I get back to people. So I have like 8 hours of meetings a day, and I probably have 500 emails a week or so. Um, and so there's an awful lot of just getting through stuff. My other PA helps me with process. So it's like, is the team getting the images right for iPlayer? Are we delivering all of the bits and pieces that we need to for a marketing campaign? And while they are sort of officially PAs, I have a real obsession with the fact that everybody on my team needs active career growth and development. So Sally, who's one of my PAs, has just spent a lot of the summer working in the broadcast truck at the proms because she loves music. So she's sitting in there watching the bank of TV screens and watching the director and the script supervisor. And then she's been on location looking at what the floor manager does. So I'm over and above. I think there's this thing of sort of people think, oh, I've got a PA, that's their job. I think everybody's job is to understand as much as possible about the industry they're working in. And in the BBC, there was very much a culture of only people in commissioning can have views on TV programs. We don't ask PAs. What? Do they not watch TV? So we have program reviews where everybody talks, of course. So I do have PAs, but I would say they're more like part of our commissioning and production team than doing admin.
That's awesome. That's awesome, and a space for them to grow as well, which is great. I would never complain about my 30 emails ever again after hearing 500 emails. That is a lot. Another question here from one of our listeners in: what are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career, and how did you overcome them?
Um, I've had loads of challenges. I'm just trying to think about which are the worst of them. Um, I've had challenges of things like when I was quite junior, more senior people being very bullying. There was a real kind of culture across television of it being okay to bully younger people, and particularly I think then younger women, although I really think that's changed. But I had people swear at me in front of other people, scream at me, shout, call me at ludicrous times of the day and night, demanding that I do stuff for them. And actually, then I would say uh, I was really intimidated by it, because when you are starting out in your career, let's be honest, you sort of can't push back. I think what I would do now is I would talk to a more senior person about that. But I felt, and I still think I would feel quite intimidated by that. It is hard when you're starting out to overcome challenges. And I'd love to be able to give you a platitude about everybody can overcome them. It is really hard when you are junior in any industry to stand your ground and to know what is acceptable and where to push back. Then later in my career, I was hosting a radio show where there was a man who did half the weeks of the year, I did the other half, and I discovered that he was earning precisely double what I was earning. And I was told, well, he's more experienced than you. And I said, yeah, but that's irrelevant, because you obviously think I'm as good because you've given me the equivalent amount of work. And actually, on that occasion, I said, right, I'm not going to do it. And I left, and then they paid me the same amount. So I haven't always been able to stand up to challenges. There are times where I have, and it hasn't always worked. Sometimes you take a risk and you say, right, I'm not putting up with this, and it doesn't pay off. And they say, okay, bye. But I think knowing who you are and where your kind of moral compass is and where your boundaries are is really important. And being able to advocate for yourself is one of the hardest things I've ever had to learn. I found it really hard to be able to, without getting either really quavery or really like aggressive and defensive. That's a skill that, again, I think is learned and improved upon during your career, is to be able to say, I don't feel comfortable with this for this reason. I don't think I'm being unreasonable to say it. Like, trying to find the words to stand your ground is something that is worth spending some time doing.
Definitely, I really like how you said kind of like your own, like how you view yourself, your moral standpoint. I think that's really important, because when you're chasing a career or chasing something, you can kind of lose yourself a bit, and
Yeah.
I think it's really important to remember that. Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you. Another question here: are there any common mistakes you see newcomers make in the industry, and how can they be avoided?
Hmm. Um, I think the mistakes I would say are pretending you know more than you do. Don't do it. I've done it a million times. You always get busted. It's like mortifying. Don't do it. Just say, I don't know. I think if anybody makes you feel ashamed for not knowing something, then shame on them, because we all don't know loads. Uh, so I would say don't pretend you know. When people in every industry talk in acronyms, like there's always the, oh no, we need to do the SLS. What about the D2 400 thing? What? Just ask. Always ask. Um, I would say as well, there is a spectrum of being hyper enthusiastic and allowing yourself to being taken advantage of, but then being really chippy and like, sorry, I only work 9 to 5. You kind of don't in my career. So working out where you sit on that spectrum of what's acceptable, working late is okay once or twice, but it's not okay if it's so what I would say is it's not a mistake in starting out in any industry, but just finding your feet slowly, find your tone of voice at work, and yeah, don't pretend don't pretend you know more than you do, because you will get found out.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that one. So we have a couple more before we come to a close today. It's gone so quick. It's been so fun. Um, so can you share a project or initiative that you're working on that you're proud of, or maybe it's something you've worked on in the past you're proud of?
Okay, let me think. I have a TV show starting on Monday about Mozart. And the challenge with that is maybe a million people in this country of, say, 60 or so million people, maybe a million people think they care about Mozart. What happens to the 59 million others? And the challenge with making arts programs is that a lot of people, me included, hate the word arts, because nobody says, oh, I'm going to go and relax and do some arts. It's like, no, I'm going to listen to music. I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to take some whatever, selfies, pictures, whatever. Or I'm going to, yeah, go and sit at the piano and just noodle about. It's all arts. Like, most of what we choose to do in our leisure time, if it isn't sport, is arts. But I have a real block with trying to bring people to arts programs. So the Mozart show that I've done is a drama documentary. And the idea of it, hopefully, is that more than those 1 million people who think they're interested might watch it, because it's just really beautifully made. And it's like a story of a really screwed up young kid who is blessed with the most incredible talent and is messed up by child prodigy and a really domineering, horrible, bullying father who screws him up, but he just happens to be one of the greatest geniuses who ever lived. So for me, that's the challenge. It's like, I know I can find people who love opera or ballet, or that's easy. What makes, like, for me, what success looks like is trying to bring people to things that they think they might be totally uninterested in, and them going, oh my God, I actually quite enjoyed that. So I would say, check out Mozart, Rise of a Genius.
Yes, there you go. Plug it definitely. I'm sure people will definitely check that out. And the last question, just to round up everything, do you have any like last kind of like nuggets of wisdom, pieces of advice to give our young people today? Yeah, just to leave them with something.
Um, yeah, I suppose I would say that, if you don't know what it is that you do want to do, have a think about broadcasting. It's such a massive word, and there are a million different careers within that word, but I have had the best time in my working life, and I never planned it. I didn't know that was what I was going to end up doing, but there is something so fulfilling about making content that other people love. And when I say broadcasting, by the way, I don't just mean like the BBC or even Netflix. It's like, if you're a content creator for YouTube, or you make amazing videos, or whatever it is, there is something deeply satisfying about the combination of the process of how do you shoot, capture, record something that is amazing, but then it being shared by other people and enjoyed. That's It's something I spent a lot of years thinking, is this really worth the blood, sweat, and tears? Actually, bringing pleasure and interest and entertainment and information into people's lives is like a really privileged thing to do. So I have loved doing what I've done, and I would just encourage you, if you're even remotely interested, to have a think about, what does that look like for you, and might there be something that you want to do in that?
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Susie, for
Pleasure.
your advice and your time, and yeah, taking time to speak to us today. It's been really great. I'm sure you've left us all feeling inspired. I'm definitely inspired, so thank you very much. Thank
No, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me.
you, and speak to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to have some time for some feedback. We've got a little space for you to do this. You can scan the QR code. Let us know how you found today. Let us know if we can improve anything. Anything you want to share with us, please scan that QR code. I'm going to leave a couple of minutes for us to do this. I'm going to go off camera, but I'll be back shortly. Okay, so unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for being here with us on the Industry Spotlight Talk. A huge thank you to all of you tuning in and spending time with us today. There's some more QR codes on the screen for you to get more involved with Speakers for Schools. We have a book club. If you haven't already heard of it, please join our book club and learn along with us. We'll read different books every time, so you can go and have a look there. We also have work experience in this QR code. If you're looking for any kind of experience in different industries, we have some open for you there. And we also can do talks in your school, so in-person talks. You can meet speakers face to face and have them join you for a session in your school. So get involved that way as well. These talks will be on our online library, so please do have a look at all the previous ones we've done in the past, and stay tuned for some more coming up in the future. Hopefully see you soon at another event. Bye, have a good day.